my name is Maddie. Welcome to my channel, and today I'll be doing a book haul. So I'll be showing all the books that I've got in recent months. Basically, for the most part, I think these are all the books I purchased in 2022, which, if I'm right, and these are all the books that I have gotten in 2022 and haven't left anything out, that means I got 22 books in 2022. I never thought about that. Pretty fitting. But yes, I haven't been buying a lot of books lately. Really, I've only been getting ebooks and reading in that format because, for one, it's cheaper, and also because I live in an RV at the moment temporarily, and for that reason I don't have a lot of space to store things, so I try not to accumulate too many things. That includes trying not to buy too many books because I don't have a lot of room and space to put them. That's why I've been sticking mostly to ebooks, but every once in a while I will buy a physical book, and if I am going to buy a physical book, it usually needs to be by an author I already love, so I'm pretty much guaranteed to like that book most of the time, or I'll buy books that I've already read in ebook format and I want to own physically. So I've been very strict on the certain type of books that I am buying, trying not to accumulate too much, but I do still have some books to share that deem worthy for a book haul. So why don't we get into it, and I'll let you know pretty much all the books that I got in 2022. So I'm going to show these in order of where I got them from. I believe I got this one from Target, I'm pretty sure. Target sounds about right. I want to say it's from Target. That is It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover, and this is the sequel to It Ends With Us. I have already read this. I have talked about it before in my December wrap-up, either my October, I think it was in my November wrap-up. I think I read this in November, so it's from my November wrap-up. And I talked about it in there. Really enjoyed it. It's pretty much loved it as much as the first book. Colleen Hoover is one of my auto-buy authors. I will always buy any book from her. I want to collect all of her books. I do own most of her books already. I really enjoyed It Ends With Us, so I was super looking forward to reading the sequel, and it did not disappoint. I thought it was very well done. A really good continuation to where the first book left off. I love how he went more into a certain character and got more info on him in this book, whereas in the first book we didn't get as much page time and knowledge about him, and we got so much more about him in this book, and it was so satisfying. This is a duology that I don't like to talk much on what it's about. I think It Ends With Us is a great book to go into blindly, so I never give too much on what it is about. I would really recommend it. However, it does tackle the theme of abuse, so if that's not something you like to read about, I would probably stay away from these books. But this duology is so good. It's so thought-provoking, and I felt like it was really impactful and super emotional. I think the sequel is a little more lighthearted than the first book was. The first book is very deep, but the sequel gives more of like a fluffy vibe, which I thought was nice. And I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I believe I also gave the first book 4 out of 5 stars. So overall, this is like a 4-star series. It's very good. Now to talk about the books that I got from my local half-priced books. I'm very lucky enough to have a half-price books in my town, so I make frequent visits there. And the first one is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy, another book I have also already read. Actually, I'm very pleased to say that I have read most of the books in this book haul, which is very unusual because I can remember in the book hauls that I've done, most of the books in those hauls I haven't read or even attempted to pick up yet, so this is very unusual. But I have read this book. This one is a memoir written by Jeanette McCurdy. She's very notable for her role on iCarly, which is a Nickelodeon show that ran in the late 2000s, which I was a pretty big fan of iCarly, so I was really looking forward to reading this. In this one, Jeanette goes through her experience of being a child star and how it was a position she never really wanted to be in. She was kind of forced to be a child actress by her mother, who wanted her to take that up as a career because it was a dream that she had for herself as a kid, but that she never got to fulfill, so she wanted that for Jeanette. And as you go through her story, you start to discover how toxic her mother is. And one of the main focuses of this book is Jeanette going over and processing the abusive relationship that she did have with her mother. I really love this book. I did not expect to love it as much as I did because I never read a memoir before this one, so I didn't know what to expect going into it, but I really loved it. I talked about it more in my October and November wrap up. So if you want to know more of my thoughts on this one, I already mentioned like pretty much all of them, so I'll link that video on the screen. You can watch that video if you feel so inclined to know more of my thoughts about this one. But yes, I loved it. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I loved every single second of it. I actually listened to this on audiobook the first time I read it. And I mentioned before that I don't love listening to audiobooks, but when it comes to books like this where there's not a lot of like world building in it, because this is a memoir, a nonfiction, so there's not like really dense stuff in it, I feel more comfortable listening to audiobooks with books that are like that, because the information in the book is easier to comprehend and grasp. So if my mind starts to like wander like it usually does when I listen to audiobooks, it's not too big of a deal because it's much more easier to pick up on the information and for me to process the information on a book like this than it is with like a fiction book with a lot of fantastical elements in it. So I did enjoy the audiobook. I really wanted to listen to it specifically because it's narrated by Jeanette, so I thought that would make for a very interesting experience. But I also wanted to physically own the book because I loved it so much and I know I'll read it again, so I got the physical copy as well. Okay, this is going to be difficult to hold up, but I got a lot of books from the Black Dagger Brotherhood series by J.R. Ward. As you can see, a lot of them. I cannot hold all these up at once, so I'll just hold up like maybe, let's just do like the first 4 books. That's gonna be a lot easier. So I got books, let's see, 1 through, I have 10 books from the series. I believe I'm missing one of the books in between. I'm missing either book 8 or 9. But yes, I got a lot of books from the series. This is a series that I am actively reading right now. So I've been collecting all the books, even though, like I said in the beginning of this video, I should not be collecting any books right now, especially with a series as big as this one. But I've been collecting them because the mass market paperback copies of these books are so cheap, and they're very, very cheap at half price books. So because of that, it's like they're so easy to collect because you don't have to like splurge too much on these copies. And I've had so much fun reading this series. I haven't picked up a book in this series in like 3 weeks, and I really need to get back to it. But I am so excited to keep on continuing with this series. The Black Dagger Brotherhood series, it follows this world where vampires exist, and there's this group called the Black Dagger Brotherhood, and they're tasked with keeping the vampire race safe and protecting them from these vampire slayers known as lessers. And so that's pretty much their job, and each book follows a different character and couple from this series and their individual stories. So far I've read books 1 through 5, so I need to get to book 6 next, which is Lover and Shrine. So I'll be getting to this one really soon. But yeah, I'm gonna keep on collecting these books and really looking forward to reading the rest of this series. So the rest of these books I got from Barnes and Noble. The first one is the hardback copy of 𝑣𝑒 by Colleen Hoover. I do already own this book. I have it right here in paperback. I have the paperback copy as well, but the hardcover copy is so beautiful. It also has a new like exclusive chapter right here that it says that I haven't read yet, but I will probably when I reread this sometime. So yes, I have already read 𝑣𝑒. I love 𝑣𝑒 when I loved it when I read it, and I definitely will reread it again. So that's why I was like, had no problems getting the hardback copy because I'll reread this one again. I think it's one of Colleen's best books. If you don't know, this one, it is a thriller. It's about this woman, and she gets a job to finish this book series by this very, very famous author who has a very notable book series that this author, she can't finish because she becomes disabled. She's like paralyzed, so she's incapable of finishing her series. And so the main character, I think I remember her name is Lowen. Yes, Lowen. She starts her journey of finishing this series, but while going through 𝑣𝑒's manuscripts, she comes across a manuscript by her that is very alarming, and it's basically 𝑣𝑒's biography, and she talks about a lot of things that raise alarms to Lowen. So this book is all about her uncovering the truth about Verity and her ill intentions. She also kind of starts up a relationship with Verity's husband. And yeah, this book is very, very intense. It's a thriller for a reason. There's a lot of like plot twists, crazy stuff happening. It's so, so, so good. I really actually want to reread this one soon. I think I read it in the beginning of 2022, the beginning of this past year. So it's been a while. So I would love to reread this again. And I really am curious about the exclusive chapter in this book and what that is all about. The rest of these books are all Jennifer L. Armentrout books, and most of them I have read. Yes, I've read most of these, but I didn't own them yet, so I wanted to like own the physical copy. The first one is the Wait For You series, the first book being Wait For You. This book I have actually read, and I think I did also read the second book, which is Be With Me. So I've read these two. I have not read Stay With Me yet. So I'll be getting to this one soon, but I do actually think I want to reread the first two before going on to the third book and the rest of the books in the series. These books are new adult, so they take place in college, and each book follows a different character and couple, so it is a companion series. The first two books were really good. It has been a while since I've read them. I've read them in the beginning of 2022, and I forgot pretty much a lot of what happens in them, so I would be pretty down to reread them again before getting to the third book. But I do remember really loving the first two books, so I'm excited to get back into this series and finish off the rest of the books. I only have the first three, so I will have to look for the rest of the books in physical copies at some point. Actually, I think this series used to be only available on Amazon, so I was really surprised to see these books in Barnes & Noble, and I've also seen the books in, I think, Walmart as well. So it's really cool to see these in like stores in public, because for a while these books were only available online. So pretty cool. This one by Jennifer L. Armentrout I haven't read yet, and that is White Hot Kiss. I believe this is an adult series, either adult or young adult. I'm not quite sure, actually. But I have been wanting to read this series because it is JLA, so I want to read all of her books. And this is the one series by her that I have not started yet. I believe there's also a spin-off series from this series as well, and I've, of course, also haven't started that one yet. This one is paranormal, and it has to do with a relationship between a gargoyle and a demon. The reason I didn't pick up this series for a long time is because I typically don't love reading anything that has to do with demons, but I've kind of like eased up on that in recent months, so I'd be totally fine with reading a book like this now, but in the past I wasn't really okay with that for reasons. So that's why I haven't picked up this series at all, but I want to now that I'm kind of all right with reading stuff about that. But that's pretty much all I know about it. It's paranormal. Has to do with a relationship between a gargoyle and a demon, which seems pretty odd, but I'm curious about it, so I'll be starting this soon. So I feel kind of ridiculous for getting these next two books because I already own the series and physical copy, but just in different editions. I'll explain more of my reasons for getting these two books specifically, but that is the first two books in the Lux series. I have read all of the Lux series. I love that series so much. It's been a long time since I've read those books though, so I'd be thrilled to reread these sometime soon. The Lux series is another paranormal series by Jennifer L. Armentrout, and it takes place in this world where there are aliens, and there are aliens that take on the form of humans. They came from this planet called Lux, and their planet was destroyed, so now the Luxen live on Earth, and so Katie meets this Luxen named Damon. She finds out eventually that he is an alien, and they start off a relationship. So this is a romance between an alien and a human, and I really love the romance because it is kind of enemies to lovers. And I've always loved a good enemies to lovers romance, and I do think this series does the enemies to lovers trope really well. I think the dynamic that Damon and Katie have, love it so much. It's so funny, and I've always loved the world in these books. I love the characters. It's such a good series. It's been, like I said, so long since I've read it. I'd love to read it again. I have, like I said, I already own the physical books in this series. I have the bind up version, and this copy has both Onyx and Obsidian in it, so all of these Obsidian Onyx, Obsidian Onyx. I pretty much have 2 copies of each of these books now. It is kind of ridiculous. The reason I repurchased these is because my bind-up versions, they're kind of like, I've had them for a while, and the covers were kind of like bent. I also written in these, and they're very... You'll want to know something kind of ridiculous. For some reason, I felt the need to annotate this book, but I didn't actually annotate it. I made it like a game to find every single like Taylor Swift song title I could find in this book and highlighted them. I'm not even kidding. I must have been bored out of my mind for doing that, which is weird because I love this series. How could I be bored? But I like had so much fun just like highlighting every Taylor Swift song title that I could find. Like I would highlight like here, Mean, let's see, I did Mine a few times, Change, Dress. Like, what was I doing? So weird. So, like, I would love to reread this series, but I don't want to reread this book and be distracted by every time I highlighted Taylor Swift song titles in it. So that's why, that is one reason why I got these copies. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this bind-up copy. I don't know. I kind of want to keep it just because I'm a collector. What can I say? I collect books. But I don't know. I might get rid of it at some point. I'll keep it for now. But now I have these nice, new, crisp copies to read from that don't have highlighted Taylor Swift lyrics in them. So that's good. And the last book I have to share, I got this book actually yesterday. And that is The Crown of Gilded Bones, another book by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the 3rd book in the Blood and Ash series. I just finished From Blood and Ash, the 1st book, recently. I'm now reading the 2nd book. I have not been able to find the physical copy of the 2nd book in stores. I'm probably going to have to order it. I couldn't wait to read it though, so that's why I got the ebook copy of it, because I couldn't wait to get my hands on a physical copy of the 2nd book. So I am reading the 2nd book on ebook. I will eventually, probably, I'm pretty sure, purchase a physical copy of the 2nd book, as well as the rest of the books in the series that are out already. But I did manage to find the 3rd book at Barnes & Noble, so I went ahead and got it. So once I finish the 2nd book, which I'm reading right now, I'll move on to this book. I am obsessed with this series. I love it so much. I am kicking myself for putting off this series for so long. It is so good. And this series, it takes place in a fantasy world. So these are fantasy books. We follow this girl named Poppy, and she carries the role as the maiden. And so in this world, the kids, when they come of age in this kingdom, they reach a position where they can ascend, and the ascension is pretty much where people are given to the gods, and after they are deemed worthy by the gods of this world, they are granted immortality. And so Poppy's role as the maiden means that when she ascends, for some reason, we find out why, but for some reason, her ascension will save the kingdom. So the basic premise of the 1st book is Poppy needs a new guard, and so Hawk becomes her new personal guard, and she starts to build a relationship with Hawk. They grow closer and start to develop feelings for each other. So there's also a romance in the series. These books are they're so good. There's so many twists in them that keep you on the edge of your seat. I am loving the 2nd book so far, and I'm really happy about that, because sometimes with fantasy books, what I find is that the 1st book is good. The 1st book is solid. But then when you go further into the series, the rest of the books, to me, in a fantasy series aren't as good as the 1st book in the series. And I find that the latter books tend to drag. But so far with the 2nd book, A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, I'm not feeling that way at all. So I have high hopes for the rest of the books in this series. And hopefully book 3 will be good. So I'm glad to have a copy of book 3. Eventually, like I said, I will obtain physical copies for the rest of these books at some point. So I only own book 1 and 3 in physical form. It's bothering me because, like, the series, I'm just looking at it on my shelf and it looks so incomplete. But eventually, I will get the rest of the book. This is future me. I'm inserting this here because I realized I forgot a book. I just finished filming, wrapping everything up, and I saw this book on my table right here and realized, hey, I got that book recently and I forgot to mention it. So we're gonna mention it here. That is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher, another book that I have read recently, and I read it on ebook and I loved it enough to buy a physical copy. So I got a physical copy. This is a book I haven't actually talked about. I'm going to talk about it more in my January wrap-up coming up at the end of the month. But I will say I really enjoyed this. This one is a romance, and we follow Zara and Rowan. And Rowan is set to inherit some inheritance money from his grandpa. And his grandpa, who had died recently, he was the owner of this amusement park. And in his will, he tells Rowan that he will give him his inheritance money if he oversees the creators of this amusement park, and if he comes up with an idea to make his amusement park even better, and if he gets a team to successfully vote on his idea and go through with it, he will get his inheritance money. And so Zara is on the creators team, and the relationship starts off kind of rocky. It is an enemies to lovers romance. Eventually they do come to like each other as they start working together. I really love this. I really love the romance. I think it was so well done. Like I said, I'll talk about it more in my January wrap up. I did give it 4 out of 5 stars, and I got the physical copy because I'm like, yeah, this is a book that I would reread again, totally. The second book is out. The third book, I believe, comes out next week, actually. So I'll have to obtain copies of the second and third book pretty soon, and really looking forward to reading the rest of the books in this series. So those are all the books that I have gotten in recent months, and like I said, I think pretty much every single book that I got in 2022. Let me know if you've read any of these books. I would really love to know your thoughts on them, and I guess that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more bookish related videos, and I'll be back really soon. Bye!